Someone once told me that everything in life gets invented at least twice. First in the mind, and then in the physical world. What will you invent and manifest? How will you cultivate the mind which exists? Who will you choose to become?
Ladies and gentlemen, I really have the goddess in the room with me today, Miss Niyankor Ajuaj. So nice to say, too. But thank you for being here. Thanks for being on the Aki show. If you don't know, Niyankor, besides being a goddess, she is talented at many things. Being on camera as a model, actress now. She's a writer, poet, speaker, community organizer, magic maker with children, and being with people, and just like a kind spirit to be around. And I'm so excited to watch you grow more and experiment more with different forms of art. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yay! So excited. We're going to get into our first questions. All right. How do you learn?
Well, today, actually, I learned that I already know everything. It just comes out of my brain. It's pulled out through experience, through reading something that I'm like, okay, cool, I want to go and learn about, let's say, I want to learn how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? Go and I read, and then somehow my mind connects to these words and this information is just pulled out, and now I'm a peanut butter making sandwich machine.
Well, there you go. Yeah, we were talking a little bit before the show of what really is learning, and do you actually learn something? Is it possible to actually put information in your brain, or is it maybe extracted out of your brain? And I had a friend who once told me that the word education with the root ajukar means to extract. So even at the word education means you're actually taking knowledge out, whereas we kind of think you're putting knowledge in. But you already know everything you need to know. So looking at it from that lens, it's okay, well, how do you take information out of your brain in order to apply it? And then we started talking about, how do you learn? How do you take in information? And we even did this exercise.
Very hard.
We're gonna do. Yeah, let's get into it now.
Okay,
because,
let's just do it.
We were talking about okay, the way that we would appear to take in knowledge is through the senses, either audio, visually, touching, kinesthetic. But what if you didn't have your senses? How would you learn anything? And there are people who do it, but for us, it's how would you learn what a color is, or anything really?
If you've never seen it or heard a sound, how do you describe a sound without describing the way it sounds? Pretty much.
It's hard.
It is.
So we're gonna play. I haven't made up a name, but we're gonna play Describe It. So let's pretend that I don't have any kind of sight or touch. I'm paralyzed and I can't hear. Describe a color to me.
You don't have any of your senses?
None.
All of them? They're gone? Like, because
No
like, I
senses.
can't even use your hands to get you to feel anything.
It's hard. Okay, let's say like, okay, let's say I can hear.
Okay. And you want me to pick any color and describe it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this color is. It smells. Oh damn! It's very earthy. It's, think of bark and wood, fire, the fire. What the leaves like to grow on. It's the color.
Well,
It's you. You are the color.
brown, gold. But it's like, if I had never seen the colors, like, I can only answer that because I've seen the colors.
Yeah.
But if I hadn't seen the colors, I'd be like, oh. Like, I can get the
Dark
essence
earth?
of maybe what.
Fire?
Yeah. Like, I don't know. So, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I think sometimes we take all these senses for granted, and it's like, if we didn't have them, what would we really be experiencing?
Yeah, that's true.
So play that game at home, describe it. It kind of helps you tap into using other ways than your senses to feel things, to learn things.
Yeah, which is really hard. Because it's like, how do you do that? Especially, it's something that you've been doing your whole entire life. So challenging yourself to think about the way you see things or even hear things in a different way. Okay, how can I, what is it that connects me to it too? So, but I don't even know how to describe like feeling. Like,
I know.
I guess I could use tone, but I don't know like
Mm.
sound tones or like color tones. That'd be something worth looking
Maybe.
into.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. Alright, second question before we go into our break. What is love to you?
Oh, love. To me, love is expression. It's being able to express yourself however you want to express yourself in the moment, and also creating the space to allow others to do the same without judgment, or without judgment, just holding that space for them to do it, and then being able to hold it for you, no matter who they are.
I like that. So ask yourself and people at home what you believe love is. I think sometimes we're just like, oh, love. And it's like, well, for everyone, maybe they have a different definition. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. Okay. So these questions, we're gonna get to the nitty gritty because it's time for that, you know? Like,
Okay.
people need to be, like, open and raw and truthful.
I agree.
So, what is one of the most painful things you've had to experience?
One of the most painful things I had to experience was a few months ago. My sister, she was in a very bad space, just dealing with addiction, and she was in a lot of pain. She was going through a lot of life transitions, relationship wise, and it was becoming very, very toxic. It was starting to manifest in violence, and this one day in particular, it was the craziest experience I've ever had in my life. I was supposed to be performing. I had a show, and this is the first time I've ever felt so confident performing. I was like, I am here, like mentally prepared, everything, and I was like, it's gonna be the best show I've ever done yet. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna rock the house. And then my mom calls me and she's like, yo, like my sister hit her in the face. She hit my mom in the face, yeah. And she was like, I need you to come home right now. And I'm like, wait, Mom, what? How? I can't come home to you because I'm about to go. She just dropped me off at the show. I'm like, first of all, I don't have access to you. I can't get to you. And I started freaking out. But everybody was super supportive at the event. Thank you, everyone that was at the event and helped me in that chaotic moment. And then my friends ended up coming to get me. And then I went to the hospital, and just seeing my mom.
Oh, it was that?
Face.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Seeing my mother's face was the worst thing I've ever seen in my whole entire life. And it made me so angry. I have never in my life wanted to, like, literally murder someone. Because I'm like, how could you do this? This is, like, our mom. You know, it was just the worst. I've never seen anything like that. I've never experienced so much anger and pain at the same time, not knowing what to do and being helpless. So that was pretty painful, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really intense. Sorry I had to go through that.
She's healing though. Both of them. My sister, you know, she's getting treatment, so I'm proud of her for that. And my mom, she's getting better, you know, and accepting it and learning too how to set boundaries. I feel like sometimes I'm not a mother, but I was coming from a space of a daughter and a person that doesn't really put up with shit from people, no matter who they are. Essentially, like, no, like you don't need to take that from her, and it was very frustrating because I didn't understand like love from that aspect of like, this is my child and I can't just abandon my child, but also I feel like she learned that just because this is my child, I don't also have to accept this. So it was learning for both of us, for all of us that were involved.
Yeah, that's rough. And I mean, you had mentioned your sister like struggled with addiction. Why do you think that is?
I honestly don't know. It's something I'm still trying to understand myself. I feel like it got out of her control. I think that it's so easy to fall into the traps of addiction when it comes to anything. It can be anything. Like substance abuse is real. You use it to just party, you know, like you're turning up or whatever, you're going out to have a good time, but then suddenly you begin to use it to cope, and suddenly it becomes just everything you want and whatnot. I think it's very easy. I had to even step back and ask myself, like, evaluate my relationship with alcohol, you know, like, and being like, am I abusing alcohol? Like, whenever I would feel stressed and feel like, oh, I need to drink, You know, it's like, why do I feel like that's the only way I can cope with my stress? And sometimes it's just like so, it becomes unconscious because you're just so used to doing it, and then you just become way deep in it, and you can't even get out, and you need help at that point. So, but I don't know. I asked myself, try to learn, try to understand it, but it was definitely hard.
Well, how do you think you can, you know, I think sometimes when we see someone who has an addiction, we kind of rush into like, we gotta yank you out of here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, you can't really like yank someone out of their own addiction or trauma. And so it's like, how do you show up to like gently support someone, like by not like getting wrapped up in their life, but like how do you show that support for them?
You have to hold space. You have to create that space to allow them to know that you are there for them, but you also can't allow them to overstep your boundaries. Mm-hmm. You have to set very specific boundaries, like, okay, this is what I can do with you, and this is what I absolutely cannot do with you. This is what I won't tolerate. Before my sister and my mom got into that altercation, I moved out of my mom's house because me and my sister were constantly fighting. And so I was like, well, since my mom isn't gonna kick her out, I'll just remove myself from the situation because this isn't healthy for me.
Yeah.
And so being able to know like what your boundaries are, what you can and what you cannot take, because honestly, until that person wants to get help for themselves, there's nothing you can do, nothing you can say. You will be blue in the face. They have to want it, and they don't have to want it for you, anybody else but themselves. They have to literally want to save their own life. So until they're ready for that, there's really not much you can do. Just don't enable them. Of course, like, don't do whatever it is that they're addicted to in front of them. Don't give them access to it and whatnot. Just like set those boundaries.
So many good things in there. And I've had to learn, this year that boundaries are so important. And just like not feeling bad about like having boundaries and like sticking up for them. So I think that's awesome of you to like be like, nope, I gotta go.
Yeah.
And because that takes so much courage, like to be like, no, you deserve to be in an environment that you feel comfortable in, that you can flourish in. So thank you for taking that step and acknowledging your boundaries, and also kind of like, you know, giving your sister that love, but from a distance, because that's hard too. But not cutting her off. You're just still like, hey, love you, sister, but also you're dealing with your own thing, and I'm gonna let you deal with your own thing. So cool. Well, thank you for being on the show and being so vulnerable and sharing. And now we will have something special from Niyankor.
Ooh, I wonder what it is. This woman told me I was a reflection of God today. She wouldn't let me let her go until I told her that I believed her. And so I did. Even though I didn't believe her. I didn't know why she cared anyway, or why she stared so deeply into my eyes. I guess it was to make me realize, or perhaps see, the God and goddess inside of me. Or maybe it was her way of telling me I was beautiful. Lately, I've been so trapped in my mind and feeling so pitiful. I know agony is all that covers my reflection, and so I find myself hiding, afraid of being seen for anything but the perfection they once knew. For the light that once shined is now dim. Diminished by demons, I got tired of fighting, and so I let them in. But yet she still saw the light, no matter how hard I tried to deny the fact that God didn't live here anymore. And maybe that's the reason why she wouldn't let me go, until I believed her. Thank you.